Hi there. Welcome to Podio Academy. This is Podio Automate 101, Task Automation. My name is Joel Hall, and I'm a Principal Solutions Engineer here on the Podio team. So, because Podio is all about work management, typically what you find tied to most kinds of work are the concept of tasks. And as you've learned in previous videos, Podio has some really good task handling capabilities, and those tasks can be created, by yourself. They can be created by another user. They can be reassigned, but oftentimes we run into scenarios where we need tasks to be automated. And Podio again provides us a number of different ways to do this. So, what we're going to do today is talk through different possibilities for automating tasks inside of Podio and Podio Workflow Automation. We'll talk about how to leverage different flow triggers like on create or on update to trigger task automations. That'll help us, determine when a new item is added, when we want certain tasks, to be created. If there's certain tasks that we want to take action on once they're complete, we can leverage different triggers to make that happen. We'll talk about the concept of generating task checklists. So, in a lot of business processes, you'll see things where at a given interval, like a stage or a date, or at some point in the work that's being done, there's a concept of checklists, right? And we can automatically build those leveraging tasks in the Podio system. One of the things we'll also cover is when and how to use conditions to control task creation. So, something we often see customers run into is, I have some tasks that get created at stage B. I moved to stage C, but then I forgot something, so I moved back to stage B. And I have duplicate tasks because our condition really wasn't dialed in. So we'll talk about how to leverage the different conditions for that. A pretty big topic in the Podio community that we'll cover is this discussion around native tasks versus a task app. In Podio, you've again got the concept of tasks. They're really good, for things like done, not done. But oftentimes, depending on your business process or on your specific use case, it might be better or more beneficial to leverage a task application. So we'll walk through what that looks like, how to set something like that up, and talk about the differences between using the native tasks and a task app. And then finally, you'll see here as we go through this, these use cases can really be applied to a number of different business processes, whether that is something like employee onboarding, a project kickoff. There's certainly a number of scenarios in which I need to basically automate the creation or assignment of a task based on something else in the system happening. So we will cover all of those here today. All right, so let's come over to Podio, and I am in my Podio Academy workspace. And where I'm going to start is within projects. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a new project. So we've got one here that's fresh for us to test. So test project 13. Let's say this is for Screech, and I'm just going to save this. And we'll see a couple of existing workflow actions run. So I've got my project ID, I've got my project stage, automatically goes to not started, and I've got my project lead. Now, what I've also done as kind of the process owner for projects in this case, is I've been going through and planning out what are the specific tasks that should happen at each one of these stages. There's things we can do here, as well as adding owner. This could be, maybe the project manager. Let's say initial concept approved is, let's just call this process owner. I'm going to go through and just fill some of these in just so we have these. Final design is by the, I'm just going to mix these things up here. And let's, okay. So now I've got my tasks laid out here by stage, and I can see who the owner should be. Now, if I want to do something as simple as assign tasks, to members in my Podio workspace as we move through the stages, a couple of things need to happen. One, I've got a spot here for my project lead. I would also need to go ahead and put in a spot for, the PM. Well, in this case, that's our project lead, but for the process owner and the dev. So I'm going to skip over that for right now. Let's just pretend for a minute, that right now we want to assign all of these to our project lead. So what would that look like? Well, if I come over to Workflow Automation, I can see my projects application. And what I can do is I can create a new flow, and we're going to trigger this off of our project stage being updated. So again, the goal here being that as we move through our stages, we want to progress through the building of the task checklist as I've laid it out here. So what I'm going to do, let's call this 200, and let's call this what do I call that? Stage, not status. Stage equals design, create design tasks. Now, this is probably the easiest way to do this inside of Podio and the quickest way to start seeing some tangible results. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell this when our item is updated and our project stage has changed, and I'm going to tell it if our project stage has been changed to design. It'll go ahead and trigger the actions that we'll build here in a minute. Now, kind of going back to our overview here, let's talk for a minute about conditions to control task creation. In this case, what I don't want to do is I don't want to have a scenario where I move to design and create 3 new tasks. And then let's say I move forward to build and it creates those tasks. But let's say for some reason somebody moves back to design or there's a reason to move back to design. We don't want to recreate all of those tasks, at least in this use case for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the condition up to say, I only want these to trigger if we move to design from the not started stage. So the way we would do that is we've got it set up. So if our field project stage is changed and if it's changed to design, what we're going to do is we're going to add another filter, and we're going to add a filter for our previous value match. And what we're going to do is say if project stage before was equal to not started. So what that'll do is it'll basically exclude, if we're here at build, launch, hypercare closed, and we move back to design, it's not going to pass the filter and it's not going to create these tasks. So there's a lot of things you can do there with the filtering. Again, a lot of things are possible. I always really, really highly recommend customers to really, kind of think through your business process and agree on the rules before you go trying to build these things into workflow automation. So that said, let's now go ahead and create our tasks. So we know at the design stage, these are the 3 tasks that we need to do. So let's just really easily come in just to show you how this works. I'm going to search here. I always use the search just to move the list down. I'm going to say assign task. Now, I also know I'm going to need 3 of these. So a really quick shortcut. I'm on a Mac. So if I hit Command, click on the keyboard on any of these boxes, it'll just add a new one below. Which is kind of nice. And we're going to say these are both actions to assign task. So now in my workflow, we've got our filter. And if it passes filter, we'll assign 3 tasks. But what I need to do is I need to go in and put in the details. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that we want all 3 of these assigned to the project lead. And what I'm going to do is go grab the names of these. So we know we want that. Oops, click in the wrong spot. This is our second task, and this is our third task for the design phase. Now, what I often like to do is I often like to tie these as well to maybe something like the project name or the project ID. Just so when you're looking at the entire task list, it's easy to kind of visibly pick up which project they're associated to. So let's go ahead and use our project name. And let's go ahead and make the due date plus 5 days on these. So plus 5 days. So this is going to be due 5 days from the creation date of the task. Now, if I wanted to, I could put in the due time. I could mark it as private. I could put in some additional details here. And again, like any of the actions in workflow automation, you've got access to the Podio data from that item. So kind of nice to have there. But this is pretty simple, straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and save this workflow. And now when I come over here to my project, what I can do is I can say, all right, cool. Let's move it to design. And we should see these 3 tasks get generated here in just a second. And it's working on it. Let's just give it a quick refresh. And we've got all 3 of our tasks here. So if I do a quick refresh, we'll see those down here on the bottom of the page. And now those tasks are assigned to my project. And if I come out here to the workspace homepage, I can see these tasks here on my tile. And if I come here, I can see these assigned as well. So again, I like, being able to put a descriptor in there just to kind of help separate these out. But one of the things that you'll run into, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when we talk about, leveraging a task application, is I can't sort this by project. So I can see it associated to each project, but there's nothing I can do to group it by project, which is a little bit of a limitation. So because of that, what people will sometimes do is they will sometimes use what's called a task application. So in this case, we're going to use a concept of milestones. And really all this is instead of leveraging our workflow to create Podio native tasks. So if we go back here to our project, where we've created these native tasks, what we're going to do is we are going to then say, okay, when we move to build, rather than create, 3 of these native tasks, what we're going to do is we are going to create 3 milestones in our milestones app. So it's a very similar concept. What I can do is I can even come down and just copy this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this 201. And this is stage build. Now, this is going to be very similar. So what I'm going to say is when it changes to build and previously was design, but rather than using these tasks here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the action called create an item. So let me just move this up here for a second. We'll put these in place and then come get our data here. But you'll see why this is really helpful and flexible. So let's go ahead and let's find our milestone app. And let's actually add 3 of these. So create item, milestones, milestones. Okay, now I'm going to set these so we have our hook event. But you'll see what I can do now is if I look at our milestones app, our milestones are a little bit more than just a traditional Podio task, which is essentially done, not done. Our milestones will be related back to our project. They will also have an owner and a due date, but maybe we want to do something like add different statuses, for our milestones, or maybe your, information you want to track against, a task, or one of the items in the checklist is a little bit more robust than what's allowed via a native task. Then we would recommend leveraging a task application like this, and in this case, milestones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to Workflow Automation, and I'm going to say I want the milestone name to be this. So I'm just going to do these ones real quick so we can delete those other ones and get them out of our way. So let's do this. And let's get the third. Okay. Now, I'm going to delete a couple of these, and I want to point out one more thing. You'll notice here that the due date for assigning a native Podio task is the current date plus X amount of days. Something that this doesn't account for using this date field is the ability to do things like in X or +5 business days or in 1 week or something like that. You could certainly do +7 days, +30 days, whatever. But maybe you want to get a little bit more granular over when those tasks are going to be due. So, one of the things that I'll show you here in a second is we'll be able to do that because we're using a milestone or a task app versus the native Podio tasks. But before I do that, let's come in and fill in the rest of these. So, we're going to relate these things to the current project. Milestone owner for right now, I'm going to keep these as the project lead. Due date, let's keep that where that's at right now. And the status is going to always be not started. So let's come build these out here for each one. Owner is going to be project lead. Owner due date, we'll come back to that in a second. Status is always not started. And let's just get these ones here. Okay. So current project, project lead, due date we'll come back to, and we'll mark that not started. Now, here's something that's kind of cool because we're using a task application. What we can do is I'm going to add an action block here, and I'm going to move it to the top. And this is a little bit more advanced. We'll do a whole nother video around kind of the variables and some of the scripting capabilities of the workflow engine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for custom variables. So I want to use an action where I can create a custom variable that then is used later on in different actions in my flow. So let's call this due date. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some PHP, and I'm going to basically create a variable that says I want to calculate a date 5 business days from the current date. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, let's see, grab and copy paste. So let's put that in. And what I'm going to do here, again, I won't go too far in depth on the PHP, but I'm going to replace the current date. So you'll see here what I'm doing is I'm creating a variable that takes the current date and adds 5 weekdays to that. So today is, what's today? Today is the 1st. So if I were to go look at the calendar, that's true. 5 weekdays from now would actually be not Monday, Tuesday the 8th. So what's cool then is I can now use this and pass it forward to be used down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say milestone due date. Instead of value, I'm going to say calc, and I'm going to go grab that variable that I just created. All right. So now I've got the ability to set up my milestones in my milestones app when I move from design to build. So let's go ahead and save that. And let's come back over to our project. And let's go ahead and move our project from design to build. All right. And now we saw the workflow here create my 3 new milestones. Quick refresh. My related items obviously will always live down at the bottom. What's nice about this though is if I can do it by clicking this link too, little Podio shortcut. But what's great about looking at milestones or tasks in a dedicated app is I can do things like filter them by project. So this won't be very impressive because I've only got 3 of them in here tied to one project. But if I wanted to, I could say, show me all of those by related project. And my project is, well, let's pick one that doesn't have any. So if I pick 14, there's none there. If I pick 21, All three of them are there. I can also do things like now I can report on how many open tasks, per project. So let's say I want to do milestone status is not started, in progress, late. Let's say I want to do that by related project. And I can now build a report that says open milestones by project. I can add this to my app reports, and away we go. So I can always come back to just those open milestones. Now, that's very helpful because, again, with tasks, if we go back and look at our tasks, got to find them now that I completed them. We're not really easily or at all able to come in and sort those by specific projects. So this is something where leveraging, a dedicated task app is really helpful. Okay, now let's kind of take the next step here. So we've got essentially, like we said, our tasks that we've rolled out here by stage. We've got owners assigned to them. Let's now say that we want to make this even easier, right? And scale this a little bit more. Now, one of the challenges you might run into in either of the situations that we built is that, let's say I wanted to add a fourth task to the design phase. What I've got to do is I've got to come back in here and I've got to go back to the design phase. I would have to click edit and I would have to go change the task. If you don't have that many workflows, or you're, just able to easily find those, this probably isn't a big deal. But for a lot of customers, it makes managing the list of tasks a little bit more daunting because those tasks are being housed inside of the workflow engine. So what we can do is we can leverage what I call a task playbook. So let's come back over to our workspace. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new app. And we're going to call this task playbook. And, well, actually, in this workspace, we're calling these milestones. So we better, let's see. There's one of them I always use. If I can find it real quick. I don't know why I get so picky about the icons, but I do. There we go. All right, we're going to put this in table layout so it's easy to see. So let's go ahead and create the app. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this milestone name. I'm going to call this milestone related stage. And what we're going to do here is we're also going to say role. Now, because we're going to use this with our milestones app, rather than assigning things to people, we can also assign them to a role, which is really nice. So we'll take that one step further here in a minute as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say design, build, launch. And what did I say here? I've got PMs, process owners, and dev. So let's do PM, process owner, dev. Okay, so we'll just really quick kind of align these to our things here. We'll give these some different colors just to kind of break them up. Dev, PM, process owner. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. And I'm actually going to come back in, and you'll see why we need this here later on. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to add a calculation field that gets my role. And we're going to make that milestone role. Okay, so let's just do a quick import. Since we've already got these built out, no reason to go type them all out. Let's just do an Excel import. Where is my Here, let's drag that over. So stage, name, owner. Yeah, okay. We're going to import the 9 rows. All right. So now what I've done is I've essentially got my milestones built out here by stage. So next step, I'm going to get rid of that view. I don't need that view. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a view for each stage. So let's go get milestone related stage design. So here's my 3 for design. So all I'm going to do is say add a view. Let's call this milestones by design, milestones design. Save that to team views. I'm not even going to split that because what we're going to do is we're then going to do one for build, uh, milestone build. And then did I put that over? There we go. And then we're going to do one more for launch. So let's get rid of that. So here's our 3 that happen at launch. And I'm going to do a save as create MS launch team. Okay, so now I've got all of these things loaded, and I've got a view that's tied to each one of my stages because that's what's going to, again, dictate when these things are created. So what I can do now is let's come back over to projects because we're going to want to add those roles. So let's go ahead and let's do, let's see. Let's go ahead and add, what did I say that was? Process owner, dev. Okay, now this will be kind of unimpressive because I'm going to use myself for all 3 of these, but that's all right. So now I've got the roles here on our project. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to come over here to Workflow Automation and do a quick refresh so we can see the new fields and new app. And what I'm going to do now is a similar but different flow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually copy this flow because we're going to demo this with just moving to the launch phase. So let's stick with design because we'll do this for all 3 just to show you how easy this is now. So what I'm going to do is let's say this is going to be a copy. Let's call this 1, and let's just so we can see this from playbook. So now, because we've created the app for the task playbook or the milestone playbook, and we've got those views set up, I can do something a little bit different this time. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add an action, and I'm going to say a get Podio view. And I'm going to go find my playbook, and I'm going to select the view I created. So what I've got now is I've got my, I'm searching in my app milestones playbook for a view. I'm getting the view for design. So this was the 3, the 3 milestones that are tied to that phase. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell it for each one of those. So for each referenced milestone item that's coming from above, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create. So let's just, instead of having to have 3 distinct blocks, I'm looping over that view. So now all I need to do is come down and get the milestone name. Let's see, this should be the milestone. Oh, what did I change that to? Oh, I'll come back to the I'll come back to this. But let's just, again, leave those there just so we can walk through this. So for each, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to end my loop. So basically what this is going to do now is when I go from, let's see, I want to make this, I got my flows a little mixed up. So I want to make this when stage equals design, create design tasks. Okay, so when I go from to design from not started, I want it to go get those tasks from the playbook. And for each one of those tasks in the playbook, create our milestone in our milestone app. So let's go ahead and save this. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to deactivate this one. And while we're here, I'm going to deactivate the one for build, because what we can do now to build to leverage this workflow for the other stages is we can do let's go copy, and this is going to be 201 when stage equals build tasks, and all I have to do is change my filters and then point it to the other view. And I can do that again. Oops, I left the word copy in there. That's fine. I'm going to do that one more for our launch. Launch, oh, stage equals launch, create launch tasks. So let's get rid of the copy stuff. Okay, so we're going to go from launch from build, and I'm going to target it at our view for the milestones from our playbook app under the view launch. Click save. Okay, so let's, just because my OCD can't handle it, let's go fix the name on this one. There we go. Okay, so we've deactivated the other two, and now we've got 3 new flows in place. So let's go see what this looks like from launch. So what I'm going to do is click launch, and we'll see these are now created. Again, because it's pulling from our playbook application, not pulling from the workflows itself. So let's say, for example, down the road, I've got a new project. Let's just go create a new one. Actions. Here, let's just go out, add a project. Let's just do this. So we'll see here, our project stage is set. We've got everything ready to go. And again, now when I go run these workflows, what it's going to do is it's going to look at our milestones app. But let's say there's a new milestone we want to add to the design phase. Instead of going into the workflow, looking for the workflow and adding that action and creating this long running workflow, all I need to do now is come to add milestones. Let's just call this, what do I want to call this? Requirements gathering, final design sign off. Let's just call this send milestone artifacts folder to client. So that's going to be that one. And let's go ahead and, so now we should have 4 of these get created. Let's go ahead and move to design. And there they are. So there's now my 4 new milestones that were created. So again, Leveraging the concept, of a task application, is really helpful in being able to, be a bit more flexible with, how we assign things, and manage those. Now, what's cool is even if you wanted to use the native tasks, you could still leverage this setup with a playbook. The only difference would be over here in our loop that we're creating. So if we were to target, our group of design milestones here, instead of just leveraging the create new milestone or create new item action, we could leverage the assign task, and it could be that easy as well. So again, lots of things you can do there. Like I said, I wanted to show you just a couple of examples that are live in another workspace. So let's go here. I'll show you the kind of the workflows just at a high level. So again, very similar concept. In this case, this is an insurance workspace, and they're managing claims. So they've got claims that come in. These are essentially our core project records. You'll see here we have a claim status. So if we come down here, there's all this information we're collecting. You can see we've got an app where we're assigning people to these roles. And we've got our claim status. Now, what it's doing is something very similar, where if I go look over here at our task playbook, you can see we've got a series of tasks built by stage and assigned by role. So what's happening is, if I were to move this to verification, over here we've got claim verification. So these 3 tasks will be created. Actually, I've also got a workflow, I think, built in. Let's just mark these complete and see if it auto moves my status forward. I think it will. It did. Okay. So because I completed those 3 tasks, claims tasks for that stage, the system detected that and moved me forward to the verification stage. So what it's doing now is it's looking back over here and saying, okay, what do I need to do, at the claims verification stage? There's these three tasks now. So if I refresh, my little summary table's catching up, but now we'll see there's 6 total. And we can see there's, new 3 that were created here. So again, it really helps you, organize and automate a whole lot of that task automation and management process. While taking a lot of the day-to-day just data entry and tracking off of your team so they can actually think about these tasks and do the work associated with them. So um, hopefully this is helpful. Like I said, this plays a little bit into some other parts of workflow automation with things like variables and some of the PHP scripting. There will be a different module that goes a little bit deeper into that, but hopefully this gives you a good idea as to some different ways that you can automate tasks. Again, using things like different conditions and filters, um, creating tasks on different triggers, going through the concept of when to leverage the native tasks versus maybe using a dedicated task app. And again, like we saw here, claims, this is just one example. This could have been something like HR onboarding where it's a very standard procedure every time. Pre-start date, these are the things that need to be done. These are the roles assigned to those things. When those are done, great. Start date, what happens on start date, these tasks. So you can really start to orchestrate these things out. So if you have any questions, be sure to hit us up here in Resource Center under Get Help. Let us know. But hopefully you found this helpful, and we'll see you on the next video.